daily Get Together live reading club. My name is Patrick Brigger. I'm co-founder of getAbstract, and I'm your host today. And I'm very happy to be able to welcome today Bill Treasurer. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Patrick. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Bill is a best-selling author, keynote speaker in many events. And Bill, let's get started.
You go. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, you were a high diver champion. So you were jumping for, I don't know how many feet into small kid-sized pools. And your most recent book is called Courage Goes to Work. So now in these unprecedented times of Corona and lockdown, do we need an extra amount of courage?
Oh, you bet. You're correct. For many years, I've been a courage builder. In fact, I'm the chief encouragement officer of my company, which is Giant Leap Consulting. We help people and organizations be more courageous. As you know, for the last 18 years, this has been my profession, is teaching people courage, because I used to be a high diver who was afraid of heights. And what that taught me is how the central experience of being courageous is really about discomfort, vulnerability, and the feelings of fear, intense feelings of fear. And right now, there's so much unknown and uncertainty that this sense of fear has been thrust upon everybody. But the central experience of courage is to persist despite the fact that you're afraid. The good news, Patrick, as you've come to see in the last 5 weeks, is we are carrying on. We are carrying our fear with us, but we are not stopping. All of us really, it's a universal test in vulnerability and courage right now.
Okay. So yeah, you say when you need courage, there's probably an environment of uncertainty and fear, which we certainly are in. And courage means keeping on going. Is there anything positive also about the fear element?
Well, fear, you can't actually have courage unless there is the presence of fear. And fear is useful. We're born with a place in our brain called the amygdala. It's our fear preserver. It's actually, I think it's the Latin word for amygdala. It's almond. It's an almond-shaped part of your brain, a very small part. It's actually bilobal. It's in 2 parts of your brain. But you have it because it's your self-preservation button. It's what keeps you, that fear keeps you from harm and danger, and it's really useful. But at some point, that fear can also become blockage and can cause you to not do things that you ought to be doing. So at some point, when you're facing fear, if you allow yourself, it also activates your courage. What's interesting in my studies about courage over time is that I've come to know that courage is not fearlessness. Courage is, in fact, fearfulness. What differentiates courage is that it persists despite the fact that it is afraid. It doesn't stop in the face of fear. So courage is fearful, but carries on despite the fact that it is afraid.
Okay, and just facing it and not denying it, embracing it, and then you can be successful handling it. I guess that's what you're saying as well. Huh?
Yeah, and the other piece of it is to allow yourself to feel it. Like some people, I think early on wanted to deny this, feelings of fear and insecurity that they're having right now. I have a friend who's got stage 4 ovarian cancer. It's a big deal, right? And she says that it's really necessary for her to occasionally be able to say, this sucks. I hate this. This is really bad. That's fine. It's normal, natural, and even necessary to allow yourself to purge those emotions. But what she says is really key. She says you can visit Pity City. You just can't stay there. At some point, you've got to be able to move on and say, okay, I evaporated the emotion, carry on. I got to move forward.
And I guess for many people, they don't have an experience like your friend had. Life was beautiful and went on, not for everyone, but for many it was like this. And now all of a sudden we have this crisis, which is unprecedented, and it affects you. You may have lost your job, or even worse, you have people who got sick or even died from it. So is it also a certain reset in everyone's life a reminder?
Yeah, there's an old saying. It's an Italian saying that at the end of the day, the pawn and the king go back in the same box, and this is a level-setting moment in that we're all in this together. Literally, not just my country and your country, but the entire globe, the whole
Mm-hmm.
world has been level set to a feeling of vulnerability and a certain degree of shared helplessness. So I
Yeah.
think it's a humbling moment. I think it's a humbling moment for humanity, and in that humbling moment where we're all level set together, and it doesn't matter your stature, it doesn't matter your wealth, we're all in this together. You start to recognize our common sense of humanity, and we start, I
Mm-hmm.
hope, we start considering the needs of the other people around us, not just our own needs in this moment, because
Mm-hmm.
we are having shared experiences. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO of a company, you might be caring for somebody with an immune deficiency at home. It doesn't matter if you are, a lower ranking person. You may have 3 kids at home, but we're all having very similar experiences as we go through this
Yeah.
coronavirus moment.
Okay, absolutely. Now, talking about in your book, Courage Goes to Work, you say management by jumping first, where you say a leader has to go ahead by good example, I guess, and then others encourage others to follow him rather than pushing from behind. What are we jumping into right now, and how would you say does a leader have to act now with his employees and people?
Yeah, I think that it's really important right now for leaders to demonstrate composure. If you as a leader start freaking out, your workforce is going to freak out that much more. So where leaders, we always have to remember the role of role models as leaders. And right now,
Yeah.
what people are needing is a sense of composure and a sense of confidence. Hey, it's okay for you as a leader to acknowledge you have your own anxieties and fears in this moment. Your workforce may not know how much you have. You may have your own
Hmm.
business at stake,
Hmm.
in which case, there's a lot at stake, but you can't be transmitting that to people in the form of fear and anxiety, because they're carrying their own right now. What they need from
Yeah.
you is a sense that you have a sense of direction, you've got a hope for the future, that you've got a plan for continuity of this business, and
Hmm.
that you are being a leader that can be looked up to in this moment of stress for everybody.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, you told me once, if we talk about leadership, we spoke a couple of years ago, and you told me one of the greatest leadership pitfalls is hubris. So excessive pride or self-confidence. So does the corona crisis or any crisis, does it enforce it, augment it, or do people come back and maybe become more humble? How does it affect the personality of someone?
Right. So I wrote a book called The Leadership Killer, and it's reclaiming
Hmm.
humility in an age of arrogance. And what we define as the leadership killer in that book, and I wrote it with a Navy SEAL, Captain John Havlick, he's now retired. But we define hubris as dangerous overconfidence, really arrogance, that the more arrogant you are as a leader, the more dangerous you are for the people you're leading, and ultimately the more dangerous you are for yourself. And the thing about stressful situations, and in particular this moment, this coronavirus moment, it's not so much that it shapes our character, it reveals our character. So if we were an arrogant person before the coronavirus moment, with the added stress of this moment, we'll just become more so. So if you're a leader, it's really important to connect to humility. You're no better than anybody else now. You're having your own
Hmm.
struggles at home. You're having to lead a
Hmm.
workforce that has struggles going on. And so my hope is that leaders will learn the humility of this moment, that they need to rely on their workforce, right? They need to entrust their workforce. They can't be micromanaging people right now, because it's really no practical way to do that anyway. So you might as
Hmm.
well sort of allow yourself um, to experience humility. But it's interesting, because I do think that in this moment, because it's a stressful moment, you're going to be able to showcase who's truly a leader and who's truly selfish and about themselves through the actions that they take in this coronavirus moment.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think these moments, like you say, they really point out how important the people are in any business. And if you don't have your people anymore, you're not going to succeed.
Well, that's it, right? It reveals our character. And as a leader, and you've abstracted many books on the idea of servant leadership. Is the leader all about themselves through selfishness, or is the leader about the people that they are leading, that they're privileged to lead? Because at the end of the day, a leader's success is judged based on results, but the leader doesn't get those results. They get those results done through the people that they're leading. So it's the treatment of the leader, the people, the empowerment of the people, it's the skill building of the people that will determine the leader's success. So if a leader is all about themselves in this coronavirus moment, that they're going to damage themselves in the process. So it'll be really, really revealing who's a leader right now and who chokes and makes it about themselves.
Okay. Can I ask you a personal question? Because I know
Sure.
from your biography, when you were a high diver, you were the manager, the director, I think, team leader of the team.
Yeah.
And I've read that you were kind of an arrogant person, right? Or bossy type. Do I remember that right? And you got approached by some of your people that said, "Hey, Bill, what's going on?" So
Yeah.
either you're hiding it perfectly now, or you have changed. What's that possible? How is that possible?
Well, thanks. It's a good question, and you're right. Um, People often ask me, how did I get interested in the idea and topic of leadership? Because for the last 20 years, actually the last almost 30 years, I've been a practitioner, a design developer and deliverer of leadership development programs. The genesis for me starts because I did a bad job of leading. And I had one of the people that I was leading doing the diving show when I was the captain of the team, a guy who was older than me. I had just lit into the team for a subpar performance. As you know, we used to work at amusement parks doing exhibition high diving shows from 100 foot into small pools that were 10 feet deep, sometimes lighting ourselves on fire, doing aerial acrobatics. It was quite an elaborate production. And I was the director of the show and one of the divers, the captain of the team. And I lit into the team because they had done a really poor job in one of the shows. And after the shows, one of the divers hung around and he said, hey, Treasure, come here for a minute. You ever talk to me like that again, I will walk. I don't need that job that badly to be treated like anyone in the way that you just treated us. And I was really embarrassed. And Gandhi said the truth only hurts if it should. And it stung. I knew that I had no sense of who I was at all as a leader. I had just adopted the behaviors of my predecessors, and ultimately, I was my father channeling out of me. And so I had to evaluate, leadership often starts with self-awareness. I had to learn, who am I as a leader? Who do I want to be as a leader? I started reading books on leadership. I started getting better at leadership. And now I've, dedicated my profession to it. But believe me, I can drop into arrogance as quickly as the next person. And I need to constantly check myself. And I've got friends that are willing to check me with their honesty too. So I'm not, by no means, I'm nowhere near perfect as a leader. I've just learned over time that there are consequences when your own arrogance gets in the way.
Okay. Can you learn this also not the hard way? I mean, I guess reading book is a good way, but sometimes you have to break the leg until you figure out health is something that's to be treasured, So
Yeah.
what's a good way to...
I do think that I also wrote another book, and I apologize to your listeners because it has a swear word in it. But I wrote a book called
the
A Leadership.
kick ass. Kick in the ass.
Yeah. I wrote a book called A Leadership Kick in the Ass, and the whole idea is that pretty much any leader worth his or her salt at some point in their career is going to have a butt kick moment. A friend of mine said that he's learned that there's two kinds of leaders: those who have been humbled and those who are about to be. All of us are going to have a humiliating event at some point in our career. And the interesting thing, Patrick, is I really think that we learn more from our humiliations than we do for our triumphs. And they make our
Mm.
triumphs taste that much sweeter when we have overcome some humiliation. So,
Mhm.
yes, I think that there are things that you can do to bypass getting hurt to have to learn. But I do think humiliation and embarrassment are great teachers. Having said that, if you're a leader, reading abstracts, reading books of leaders that you admire, talking to leaders that have fallen into pitfalls that you don't want to fall, or who have
Mhm.
gained things that you want to gain. There's plenty of ways to develop yourself as a leader without having to, you know, succumb to humiliation to do so.
Yeah. Okay. And maybe coming back to the trust element and how important people are, do you have any tips on what you can do to improve the trust relationship you have with your employees, especially now when you're at home? You don't have that coffee moment. It's always virtual. How do you? It's
Yeah.
more difficult, right?
It is difficult. First of all, trust is so essential because it's the glue that holds leaders and followers together. It really holds relationships together. We all need trust. First, it will start with your own personal integrity. If you're a person of your word, if you do and say what you're going to do, right? If you
Mhm.
have decency in your motives and people can see that, if you do right by others, if you don't talk poorly about others in their absence. So your own personal integrity is the first reflection. Um, but a leader has to do more than that too, especially right now, because as we're working virtually, we're having to trust our workforce in ways that we didn't have to when we're all co-located together, because we can't see the
Mhm.
work we're doing or the work that
Mhm.
they're doing. Um, I think that there's going to be great learning that comes out of this. I think there's going to be much higher tolerance for virtual learning as a result of this whole experience. But I think it's really incumbent upon the leader right now to have not just team meetings to check on production of the team, but individual one-on-one check-ins just to check in to see how each individual on the team is doing personally. Not are they pushing out
Mhm.
production. You have to have those team meetings, but you want to just check in. Hey, how are you doing? How's your coronavirus experience going? What's it like at home?
Mhm.
Is there anything I can do for you? Right? Just those check-ins will show people that you care about them, not just
Mhm.
as a means to production, but that you care about them as individuals. And the more that you show people you care about them, the more loyal they'll become to you as a leader. So it really builds trust. I mean, I had a conversation a long time ago with Ken Blanchard. And Ken Blanchard has written 70 books, his most famous
Mhm.
book being The 1 Minute Manager. And he told me he thought it was really essential just to have weekly 15-minute conversations one-on-one with the people that you're working, not checking on the progress and the status of the tasks that they've been issued, but checking on them. And then you get to know what their aspirations are, what their own personal goals are, who they are as individuals, and then you're better able to serve them in your leadership role. That becomes extra important right now.
Okay, I think that's a great takeaway. Hey, care for someone, and it's not just the business; it's just the personal side of it. So we do get questions on the comment section, and so if any one of you
Great.
have questions, please go there. So let me check real quick because I've seen some stuff coming in, and
Excellent.
we have Jason Womack, author, a well-known author as well. So he's asking, how can a leader effectively manage the will versus skill issue of people being able to self-motive and manage themselves in this new work world? Manage the will versus skill issue of people.
Mm. Well, that's always a bit of something that has to be attended to, right? The willingness of people to do the work that they need to do, the ability, or the willingness and the ability, the skill piece. I think that, but it's just as it's always been, the very clear expectation setting with you as a leader and involving them in the crafting of the goals that are needed right now. So the involvement of them. And then the periodic statusing and check-in. The easiest way to explain it would be sort of expect and inspect. You have to set clear expectations, but you also need to set the dates when you're going to be checking in on the progress towards those work. It's kind of like, management 101. We don't love that word inspection, but that needs to be part of it too. So people need to know that there's going to be status moments where they have to share how they're moving forward towards the goals that are being set forth with you and them.
Okay, well, great question, and thank you for a great answer as well. Which maybe leads me to the next one. We talk about checking in and social interaction. And the first thought would be, well, we don't have any social interaction. And maybe is it true, or is it the opposite? Because we talk even more. It's not, we're distance, but we have interaction. What do you think? What's the game?
We definitely do. Yeah, I have to say, right when this whole coronavirus thing happened, I was getting ready to go to an annual event that I go to each year. It's a business retreat with business owners, part of an association I'm a member of. We all go to Arizona. It's my development time, and it got canceled 3 days before we were supposed to go out there. And in fact, I was one of the keynoters, so it was very disappointing. And then the next week, that Tuesday, so this is within 6 days, we had now mobilized a call so that we could all be on a Zoom together. And there were about 60 people on the Zoom, and it was cathartic. I can't even tell you what the meeting was about now. All I remember was seeing all these people carrying on and all in their own homes in the same way that I was. So there, and since that time, I've done it. Thank goodness, you hear this term pivoting. People are having to pivot their business. I have as well. I've been able to take a lot of the online stuff that I do now and do it virtually. So I've done, in April, I've done probably close to 15 virtual workshops, and there's got to be a minimum of 15 to 25 people on those virtual workshops. So you're right. We are connecting with each other through social media in ways that we haven't before. I think that it showed us the essential nature of these mediums, and that we can and should be using them going forward as well.
Yeah, interesting. And I guess the new normal, whenever the normal will be back to normal, won't be the old normal. And until we have a vaccination, probably will take some time, but it will be different. We will learn something positive from all of this as well.
I think so. As a business owner, and I imagine that you are more progressive than some of the business owners that I've worked with, but I've got some business owners that are in construction, for example. Yeah. And there's a particular business owner that I know of, a good person, but has always been reluctant to have people working from home. He does not support telecommuting at all. But now he's telecommuting. And now he's seeing how productive he can be. He's seeing how productive his workforce is. And now his own appetite for it has, grown. So I think that there will be a positive that will come out of this experience. In fact, what I have found, the challenge now, Patrick, is that people are overworking. They don't know how to turn it off at home. Because, and a lot of people are saving their commute times and dedicating it to more work. So I think that the real trick is, how do we, provide skills with people to know how to turn it off, how to turn it on, how to live in this versatile world where some days we're going to go in the office and some days we're going to work remotely, without my work life interfering with my home life and vice versa.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. We observe the same thing. It's absolutely no worry whether people work enough. The worry is, please make sure you don't work the whole weekend and take some time off and get your batteries charged. Yeah,
definitely.
Let me look at some other questions. We have a couple. I can't pick all of them. Oops, my phone's dropping down. Love your insights into leadership and loyalty. What advice do you have for parents who are working from home and are new to this multitasking of work and homeschooling? Do you have any advice for them during this time?
Now I'm not. I can say I'm not the poster. Right. Yeah, I'm not the poster child for great parenting. I do the best I can. I love my kids, that's for sure. And I'm in the same boat. I've got 3 teens at home right now in my home. twin 16-year-olds and a 13-year-old. Part of it is boundary setting. You might remember when you were growing up, your parents would have the family meeting, and it's like, oh no, not a family meeting. But those family meetings are really important right now to set boundaries. My kids they're moody 16 and 13-year-olds. My wife and I are discovering they don't clean up after themselves as much as they need to. So we're having to lay the law down there, but we also have to go their direction too. We have to let them decide what board games we're going to play tonight, what movie we're going to watch on Netflix, what are we going to do with our free time tomorrow afternoon. So you've got to give your children some say in the matter, because they feel out of control right now as well. And it's uncomfortable for all of us. And boundary settings through the family meeting become important, because we all have a voice in the process of setting the ground rules in this uncomfortable time.
Mm-hmm. And I guess very often, it's a type of leadership from a parent to a child, even from the children to the other members of the family. And it's maybe not that much different from when you have to do this type of leadership with people in a company. I think
right.
There are parallels.
And there are definitely parallels. There's always been parallels between sort of leadership and parenting, although it can go too far too. We don't want to be pedantic about leadership. That said, there are definitely parallels. I mean, setting boundaries, and for kids, signifying the importance of this moment, right? Like, pay attention, because this has never happened before, and this is serious stuff. And I know you want to play with your kids and go skateboarding today, but the reason you can't do it is not because you're going to not get coronavirus yourself, or if you do, it's not going to hurt you, but because you could carry it back to the household and somebody else like me, or our neighbors could get it. So it's teaching, it's instructing about boundaries. It's instructing about cooperating in this household together, that you're one member of 5 in my case, tolerance, following rules. There's a lot of lessons to be brought out in this moment.
Okay, we're getting to the end of our half an hour. Bill, thank you very much for joining. I think we had some excellent insights, reaching out to somebody on a personal level, getting together and valuing the people, enabling trust in various ways. And thank you so much for joining today. It was really a pleasure every time.
And, Patrick, it's always great to see you. And I want to add one other thing. We talked about that leaders aren't using their commute times. They're putting it into work, and people are overworking. One recommendation I've been giving people in this coronavirus moment, when they're working from home and they've not done it before, you got to push away from your desk occasionally. You got to practice self-care. And you got to be able to develop yourself too. It's not all about production. And I just want to give a plug for getAbstract, because I have been using it in this moment for my own self-development. And I've been, checking out abstracts that I haven't before. You all are really gracious to have opened up the subscriptions for the next couple of months, which is fantastic. But it's a good way for people to continue keeping themselves sharp. Just download an abstract of a book that you've been wanting to read, and keep yourself fresh and developed.
Okay, thank you very much. Courage Goes to Work, obviously a very good book that I can recommend, and we recommend reading all the books always, not just the summary, obviously, because you cannot reproduce a book in small pages. But thanks a lot, Bill. I look over here, you're very close, even if we are socially distant over Atlantic. Thank you very much, and I wish you and your family a good week. Bye.
Thanks so much. Great seeing you again.
Extraordinary challenges require extraordinary responses from thought leaders, company executives, and employees. As the coronavirus pandemic unfolds and businesses scramble to adapt to escalating containment efforts, getAbstract is here to help organizations navigate this crisis wisely and professionally. For over 20 years, we've been committed to providing relevant knowledge from reliable sources to help people make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. In line with our mission to empower decision makers with relevant knowledge from trusted sources, we are proud to offer businesses free access to our full library until May 18. Embark on a no-strings-attached knowledge journey with getAbstract. Sign up